So make sure you fill out that health survey before you come out to practice today. Look forward to seeing everybody. Make sure you hydrate. We're going to head over to Coach for a quick opening statement.
Yeah. Real quickly, I mean, when you see me going like this, that's Tad walking in, messing around with the computer. So I just got to put the mask back on when he walks in. So just following the protocols. A couple of things, just talking about some roster stuff. So Karan Reed he'll be joining us today, and Carl Davis will be joining us. Tremaine Brock is still going through the testing phase, so we'll see where he is tomorrow. Also, Josh Morrow will be with us tomorrow upon completion of the testing phase. The only thing, and I'll just say it now, and I'll pause while you guys text this out, is that Quincy Williams has a core muscle issue, so he's going to miss some time, and we'll just move Dakota Allen up and Nate Evans, with the will linebacker position. So that's where we are as a team, right now, with the players that we have. So just kind of try to, tell you guys this now before we go out there and you try to figure everything out. Other than that, we're still in this, phase 2 type of work. Looking forward to August 17th, with the pads, putting them on. And then obviously September 5th is when we have to get down to 53 and trying to figure out who the 53 best players are, that are going to help us win this year.
Thank you, Coach. Let's start with Gary Smits.
Hey, Coach. How you doing?
Joe, I'm doing well.
The other day, Joe Schobert told us that he's not much of a talker, and I'm wondering, is he going to be the guy who exhibits his leadership on the field through his actions more than being especially vocal?
What player was that?
Schobert.
Oh, Joe. Yeah. I don't know. I've had some good conversations with him. I think he's, very focused. I think he, you can tell now when we're working. One of the things is that when you're working in this type of situation, meaning, there's no pads on, you're trying to simulate a lot of things. He has very good discipline and working through the drills with that, whether it's, bending at the knees, really working on, clamping on his tackling drill. So the one thing, that I've watched with Joe, these past couple of days is just his attention to detail. And I think, he's focused that way, but I do see him as someone that does communicate. I don't know yet. We haven't been in any type of, high anxiety type situations, but, he reminds me of a player that's extremely focused, loves what he does, can really help the people around him process his information quickly and is able to verbalize it quickly. And I feel very, very comfortable with him in there. It's like, a lot of times, sometimes there's a period where you're looking for a person to be comfortable. And then not only that person, but the people around them, especially when you're the person that's communicating. And, right now it looks, when I watch him and Miles out there, they look very comfortable, and it shows because their reaction and they seem a lot quicker and a lot better. Both players.
Thank you, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Gary. Let's go to Hayes and then D-Rock.
Hey, Doug, what kind of physical change has Josh Allen made? He looks leaner, slimmer than what we saw last year when it looked like he had a really impressive frame. But I'm just curious, what kind of physical strides have you seen out of Josh Allen?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough. I think, for Josh, it happened right after the season was over. Hey, what can I do? How can I do a better job helping this team? And all those things. And, I think your first year, what I always do is, most of those players are going to train like a son of a gun, for the combine. They're going to train like a son of a gun for the workouts. And then you have another evaluation period that at least I look at is, okay, so now they train like that. What have they done from when they stopped training to the draft? And then when they report here. And I think that shows a lot. And I think Josh, at that point did a very good job. Then you're like, okay, how are they going to come into camp? And then most of them, they do have a couple of extra weeks at the end. So there's really a short period of time, I would say about 2.5 weeks in July. and you evaluate again. What do you do during those 2.5 weeks? Because a lot of guys, they've gone so long. Their season went right into an off season where decisions have to be made with agents. Decisions have to be made about dieting, where they're going to train. We see a lot of that goes on. Then they go through the season, and during that season, I think that you learn a lot. If you're a player that's in tune to your surroundings, you're going to learn, about the practicing, the nutrition, the time, because your time is so much different than it was, in your prior, in your past, where people have to go to class and, there's study hall, there's numerous things that players have to do. So I think what Josh did a good job of is really in the offseason of saying, okay, I realize all this stuff. I know what I want to do. I know where I want to be. I'm going to work there. And he really looks great. He really does. I mean, he's moving better than he's moved before, at least, from what I've seen from last year. He's much more, communicating much more, meaning, with his teammates and, really trying to, set a standard, which I think is important. And what a great player to look up to see what he's doing. I mean, he's one player that, you can see him laugh, you can see him focus, you can see him, you see all the things around him that, there's a lot of great things ahead for him in his career. And, we're excited about him.
And then I wanted to ask you about Leviska Shenault. What's your impressions of him so far in terms of being able to pick up the scheme and execute it on the field?
I think it's good. I think it's really good. I think that, we're putting a lot on him. He's an incredible athlete. I mean, when you get a visual on him, I don't think you realize until, you actually see him up close of how big he is, how strong he is, how powerful he is. I think he can play multiple positions. And it's just a matter of, hey, let's get him off to a good start, which he has. Catches the ball extremely well. He can run. He can get in and out of cuts. So, it's going to be an exciting camp, I think, for that group. They all shown that, they have good ball skills. They all work extremely hard. Keenan, McCardle does a great job with them. So there's going to be a lot of competition there. And, it's going to be good for everybody. And those young guys are going to push the older guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Hayes. We'll go to D-Rock and then Mark Long.
Hey, Doug. I know the coaching community is pretty tight as a general rule, but I would assume, even the O-line coaches more so. How well did you know Coach Mudd, and do you have any stories that you could probably share with us?
Yeah, I mean, we're all deeply saddened. Especially for me, he's someone that when I came into the league with the Jets, he's someone that really took me under his wing for whatever reason. I don't know why I was granted that by him. He's and really there's been a lot of great line coaches in this league, but I think when you're talking about, the great line coaches, great coaches, he's up there. I was fortunate in New York. I had two players that had been drafted and played for him in Seattle, both with Kevin Mawai and Pete Kendall, that played a long period of time. And it just seemed that every time I was able to get a player that either had been with Howard or played for Howard, it made my job a lot easier, because, technically, he was just, such a really, really good football coach and really got the most out of his players. But what was important to me is, when it came into the league, there was a lot of, coaches that were obviously well established in the offensive line position. And, that first year, in New York, there was, it was tough. It was a tough transition going into a room and taking over for another great line coach in Bill Muir. And I didn't really have a lot of relationships, with people from a coaching standpoint. And, I reached out to Howard, who I had worked out for when he was in Kansas City when I was a player. And Jimmy Ray was my mentor. He was in the room with me, and he had worked with Howard and kind of got us together. And then, I was able to give him a call, I was able to talk to him. He was able to help me through, a lot of the difficult times, when we weren't playing well, or maybe I wasn't getting my point across. And he kind of took me under his wing. And I remember when the story. So when I left New Orleans and became the head coach at Syracuse, he's like, "Oh, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you left the greatest position to coach in football, and now you're a damn head coach. That's unbelievable." And we didn't talk for a while because obviously that job was very consuming of my time. And we played the University of Washington. I guess it was my first year. We played out in Washington, so I called him up, and he was, I think at the time he was actually retired, so he wasn't really doing any consulting or anything of that nature. And so we get there on a Friday. We don't really have anything on that Friday night, so we get to the West Coast 2 days early. So he comes and picks me up, and he drives me up to his home that he and Shirley built, and it's a beautiful home. And he's showing me around, and I had never been in like that Pacific Northwest, so I was like, I couldn't believe how beautiful it was. And I get up to his house, and he sits me down. We sit down, we get some coffee. He's like, "All right, listen, let's cut right to the chase. No bullshit. All right, the head coaching job. I want to know the truth. Do you love it or not?" And we talked about it for a while because, like I said, he's like, I knew you wouldn't like that shit. I told you that before. I can't believe you did that. And, and that was one thing about Howard. Howard was gonna, he's gonna tell you how he feels. That if he didn't like you, you knew it. And if he liked you, you knew it. But the one thing about Howard, he was always there for me. And I miss him greatly, and my heart goes out to Shirley and his family. And I think it's a major, major blow for a lot of us younger coaches or young line coaches. People like Howard, people like Alex Gibbs, people like Jim McNally. I mean, you go on and on. The guys in this league, Coach Bugle. I mean, I was very fortunate in the time that I came into the league that I had all these great coaches that were around that for some reason, for whatever it was, were able to help me and to become a better position coach. So it's a sad day for the NFL. It's a sad day for a lot of players. It's a sad time, really, really for all of us of a great man who, gave everything to this game. So it's I appreciate you asking that question, and obviously it's tough.
And just a quick additional question back to football. Is Dede Westbrook maybe flying under the radar a little bit this year, heading into camp? We're talking about Chark and we're talking about Shenault. And I'm just wondering if what he's looked like and if he's maybe kind of being overlooked a little bit, certainly not by the coaching staff, but maybe outside.
Yeah. I don't know about the outside, so I think, I'm not, Tad would probably know more than I would about like what's being written and what stuff. I'm kind of excited to see this group compete. I think, the young guys that came in here, like I said before, have done a really good job, of picking things up to where they're going to be able to compete. I think we have 3 players that are going into their final year of their contract, with Chris, Keelan, and Dede. So, you're going to get the best out of them. And I think at the end of the day, we as coaches are not overlooking anyone. We're going to, put people in position to see what we want to get done. Jay and I have talked about that quite a bit, and Keen has done a great job with them. And see who goes out there and who performs the best. And whoever performs the best of what we see now will be the ones that are out there. I think that's what's important. And, right now, I've seen a lot of good things from that group, the way they're practicing, the way they're supporting each other. So it's right now, everything's going well until we put the pads on.
Thanks, D-Rock. Let's go to Mark Long and then Sam.
Hey, Coach. Just curious, with the change in Yannick's agent, if you talked to him this week, had any contact and any kind of reparation there in terms of getting him back, any close to getting him back or anything like that?
No, and it's not uncommon right now. I think, whether he's, staying with his agent or switching agents, there's a grace period that goes into that. I have not spoken to Jan. So I don't know, what the next steps are or what's going to happen. Obviously, he knows that I'm always here for him. But a lot of times when it goes to the business end, you try to take care of the business part of it first before you start, doing anything else. Because, you want people to make the right decisions for themselves. You want the club to make the right decisions. And, as a coach, you just kind of step back, let all that play out, and then, see where we're at. And you're always there to support the player.
And then I was just going to ask you about Timmy Jernigan, obviously a guy who's played in this league a long time. Did you get a chance to meet with him and during his visit, and how'd that go?
Well, I think when there's things out there about players and what teams are going to do, it's difficult for me when I get in here because we're not out at the process yet where I can really comment on it. So once things are in the works, obviously, and once everything gets finalized, Mark, then I'll be able to talk about it. So I appreciate that. That's really all I can say.
Thanks, Mark. And there was a new NFL policy that came out. A player must receive 2 negative COVID tests before they're eligible to come in for a workout or for a physical. So even if we wanted to bring them in, we're not able to do that right now. Let's go over to Sam Kavaris and then Judy Batista. We got time for a couple more.
Doug, good morning.
Good morning.
I was curious about how often you talk to the players since they go home every night about what you told us a couple weeks ago, the responsibility that they have to each other and the personal accountability they have, since they really have to trust each other. Do you talk to them about that every day?
I do. I just think, it's part of it. And because, and I tell them stories about how we can support each other. I mean, whether I get in trouble or not, I mean, I'm in my office and there's a lot going on. And also I'm like, holy cow, I walk out of the office and I get to the door, not my front door, the front door of, where the coach's offices are. And I realize I don't have my mask on. So I immediately put my shirt up, turn back, and go put it on. And, I was telling those guys, hey, listen, we've got to help each other. We've got to be responsible. I said, things like this will happen. And I was, I would appreciate it if I would have gone into the hallway and walked down. If someone would have seen me, I would hope they say something, what I'm saying? Like, hey, coach, so we're constantly talking about that and situations that come up that you may not even think about. Like, my kids are, doing what they're doing. They're out and about and they're with all their friends. They come home, they're touching the refrigerator, touching things like that. And, I'm trying to be as careful as I possibly can. I think that we've seen, whether it be our colleagues or people, professionals or people that, we would say, oh, they're going to do everything that it takes, wind up, getting this virus. It can, come in a lot of different ways. It's not just what we do. So, we continue to keep this education, this conversation, of the code very fluid within our program. Because I think it's important. We know it, and we don't want to take it for granted. And we know that we have to be aware of all of our situations. Once we leave the building. I think when we're in this building, I was talking to my brother-in-law last night, who's a electrocardiologist. And I was trying to explain to him kind of how the building is. And I was talking to him about the tracking devices and everything that we have. And I'm like, it's almost like, you feel like you could potentially like you're in a hospital to a certain extent, which is a good thing. You feel safe, you feel secure. That's how we feel when we get into a hospital. And, he was like, shoot, you guys are probably, it's probably cleaner or better than, that the hospitals are. We have, cleaning crews that come in here on a regular basis, and they just, they are washing everything down. I'm able to see them at night because they come in, when everyone's gone. So I think, I can't speak for everyone, but I think we're all doing that. I really do. I don't know how much or how often, but, for us, it's a fluid conversation that happens on a daily basis, not just from me, but, from the coaches. And then I think from the players to players. I think everyone is very aware of the situation.
Doug, there's some momentum building that perhaps the teams would have a home bubble during the season. Have you heard about that? Would you be in favor of that, where everybody is just ensconced in one place for the entire season?
I just think, when I look at it, I think there's a risk factor in everything, that you do. I think here, while we're in this building, obviously it's an environment that we can control. I mean, between us, the food staff and SMG, everyone's on board, everyone's being tested, everyone's doing that. I think, once you start getting to the outside, I think now you have to deal with a lot of other issues, that come up there. I've always been, I think, the bubble concept, from what people have said, it's very difficult, to do for a long period of time. I think that, for us, I just think it's a level of responsibility, and until they tell anything else. But if someone did come to us and say, hey, listen, I don't feel that I'm in a safe environment when I leave this building, we would be very proactive in doing whatever we can to make sure that player, feels safe, and we put him in an environment where he can feel that way. However we want to label it, a bubble or not a bubble. I wouldn't be able to talk about that until I know exactly what that is.
Thanks, Doug. Glad you're well.
Sure. Thank you, Sam.
Yep. Thanks, Sam. Let's go over to Judy.
Hey, Judy.
Hi, Doug. I wanted to ask you, yesterday Gardner mentioned in passing that he felt that he and a group of some of the guys there were in a position to enact a culture change there, to go towards a consistently winning culture. I wonder if you've addressed that with the team or with anybody specifically, and maybe what you've seen from players in that direction.
Yeah. I don't necessarily address those things with players individually unless they bring it up to me. I think a lot of times I think when things like that occur, at least for me, I'm always concerned about people thinking that I'm trying to manipulate a team or manipulate a group of players, and that's not who I am. So I have a difficult time with that. But I do create a vision for what we want to have as a team. Whether you want to call it a culture, that's fine. But our vision of how we want to communicate, how we want to help each other, how we want to get better, how we want to commit ourselves to the team aspect of things rather than the individual aspect of things. So I think that occurs. I think what happens to players, and when you have probably the youngest team in the league, you have a lot of young guys that have been in the locker room and really haven't said much, but they've gathered a lot of information. And some of them come from winning programs, some of them come from different types of backgrounds where they've needed to commit themselves to something to have the level of success to get themselves here. So I think, a lot of times what will happen, and like I said before, I didn't realize this until I heard, Jari Evans talk. When I was in New Orleans, and we had Jari Evans and we had Reggie Bush and we had a bunch of guys in that first draft class in 2006. And he talked about when they came in that they had all spoken about, hey, listen, we're going to change this thing. We're going to do this and do that. And I never knew those conversations were taking place. But then to see where those players are and what they've done for that program, I understand it. So, to have, Gardner or maybe Josh or some of these younger players, get together and want to create something that's going to be beneficial for the team without any hidden agenda for themselves, is really a good step, in what we're trying to create here as far as what my vision is for this team.
Thanks, Judy. We got time for two more questions, and we got to get Coach out to practice. JP is going to ask a question on behalf of John Reed. We're working through some Microsoft Teams issues, so go ahead, JP.
We'll see if this issue continues in my car. I had a question really about, and to echo John's question about Cam Robinson. The other day, Cam was talking about his it's night and day this year as opposed to last year this time of year. He wasn't even cleared this time of year yet. Have you seen that yet out of him? What kind of difference have you seen out of Cam so far? And then with Will Richardson coming in, moving to left tackle, I know they're wearing pajamas so far, as you like to say, but what do you like about the left tackle position so far?
Yeah, I think Cam looks good. I mean, I think what he's probably talking about is, like you said, at this time last year he wasn't even cleared. So, which means, if he's not cleared at this time last year, then that whole off season, you're not able to put your body in a position for either strengthening of muscles or muscle memory or however you want to, describe it. And, next thing you know, you're thrown out there on the field and, for lack of a better term, you're just trying to survive. You're trying to just win at what you do, and your focus isn't on a process or a progression to build a foundation to put yourself in better position where you necessarily don't have to struggle or work as hard or however you want to describe it. So what I've seen from Cam is he came back. He's stronger. He's moving extremely well. The footwork and the technique coming back is much better than I've ever seen, from him. So I think there's a confidence building, there's not a comfort level, but a confidence building in him. And he's getting better on a daily basis. I think overall, when I looked at the group, I've seen the improvement that we've talked about this whole off season of, hey, this group needs to take a step up. And like you said, I can't really tell from a standpoint of the production because we're in a result-oriented business, because we haven't put the pads on. But as far as, strength, size, athletic ability, things that we're able to evaluate now from that whole group, I've seen improvement across the board from everyone, which I think, if that can carry over now into the same type of improvement of, when we do start putting the pads on and we do start playing, then I think that we'll be able to talk about that group as taking the next step. But, obviously we still have a lot of work ahead of us.
Thanks, JP. And then we're going to go to the columnist for the final question.
Hey, Doug. I'm just wondering how much did talking with Jay Gruden possibly factor into the signing of fullback Connor Slomka? Is this a signal that you're going to possibly go back to a true fullback position, or was he, because you didn't sign any other true fullback, so I'm just wondering what the strategy was behind his signing and him being the only one who's a natural fullback?
Yeah, I think what I struggle with, and Jay and I have talked about this, and Dave has been involved in these conversations, is what are you looking for in that position? As far as how it fits your offense, and what's difficult if let's say if we go back to the traditional old-fashioned, kind of, the banger, the guy that can go in there and lead on somebody and, and can really block. So basically it's your undersized offensive guard back there, playing in the backfield, being a lead guy for the back, to help him. Now, if it's that type of player, you've got to ask yourself, okay, what are we getting out of that player from a standpoint of the passing game? What are we getting out of that player from a standpoint of special teams? So, Connor has the ability, he can, he's tough, he can run well. He does have some ball skills. So those are the keys to him going at that position. The other thing you look at is, okay, you understand that goal line and short yardage, or maybe some situations you're going to have to bring someone over, and those snaps during the year, when you look at it from a percentage standpoint, are low. You might be in 8 to 12 snaps of that personnel grouping in goal line, and then depending upon what you want to do offensively, your short yardage. But now there's a big sense of, okay, passing game and special teams. So you start looking at a combination. I think you see this around the league of, your F-type tight ends, which are a little bit longer, maybe not as thorough as a banger from space. What can they give us there? So, we're looking for people in that position that can, actually, if you dress them, because we're so limited, on who you can dress, that I can guarantee that player, 18, 19, maybe 20 snaps per game. And then if you don't get into a situation like goal line and short yardage, he'll be able to get those snaps in special teams. So I think those are the things that I look at that position, because it's a tough position. You know, you look at teams now, most of the time it could be 70 or 80%. You know, they're in 3 wide receivers and 1 back. You know, maybe even more so than that. We look at college and you see it, you know, gravitating to that. So, you know, it's a difficult time, and I think that if you wind up getting one and he becomes a player that can contribute on those things, then I think that player adds a lot of value to your football team. I think at the end of the day, if it doesn't, then you might have to look at other ways and put the best value back there, you know, on that team, because it's not just making the team. It's more from a standpoint of, I'm talking about game day roster. You know, you might always want to keep one on your practice squad that it's low, so this way you can have someone practice when you play those type of teams and practice in those situations. And I think that does gain value to your football team during the year. But I think all these things, you know, remain to be seen as they get out there and they start playing.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right, Coach. Thank you. Everybody else, we'll see you guys.